Hey Chris, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just great. Good morning to me, and I guess good evening to you, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost touching 5 p.m. ish here. In
Okay.
in a very good morning to you. I know you have a long day every day, so I have to say thank you very much for taking time out for this podcast.
Sure. Yeah, happy to be here, Ammar.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
Chris, you are a person known to be behind Oriental News, the Bobit, media, and also ICRS. So I want to know who is Chris Brown and how did you end up doing what you're doing in this career of yours that is fantastic and so illustrious.
Well, gosh, that journey started 22 years ago. I guess at this
Wow.
point, when I was I was between jobs. I was in the film industry actually. I worked for Paramount Pictures here in Los Angeles and Hollywood. There was a big layoff after 9/11. I got a temp job at Bobit Business Media, the company I work for now.
Right.
Uh, I was in the classified ad department. I knew I wanted to write. I got hired in 2 years later, full time on a magazine called Business Fleet Magazine. 2 years after that, I got the job as the editor of Auto Rental News. So Bobbitt basically does different types of fleet magazines, from car rental to commercial fleet to
Yes.
corporate fleets to heavy duty trucking.
Wow, that's incredible. And how's the journey been, especially with the auto rental news? Because auto rental is a very interesting industry, and US is known for car rental, and of course, then rest of the world, there are so many brands. So how's the journey been, with especially with the ARN?
Well, I can just sort of tell you that the magazine started way back in 1989, and it was a small single person operation back then. And Bobbitt bought it, I think, in 92 or 93.
Right.
And it still is really the only trade publication that
Exactly.
serves the auto rental market in its entirety. We've seen, we were obviously very focused on print magazines back in the day, and now we don't have a print magazine. It's just digital. And the digital really has allowed us to become international. And around 10 years ago, the car rental show started in 1995. So we're coming up on 30 years, believe it or not. It became the International Car Rental Show, and 30% of our attendees at the show are from overseas. But I digress. Your question was more on auto rental news and the market in general. It's been uh, I mean, it's a public facing car rental is publicly facing.
Yes.
So, as opposed to, say, trucking fleets type thing, there's so much going on year after year of the market. And mobility, this concept of mobility is consistently changing. Ammar, you probably remember the explosion of car sharing. We're talking, 15, 16, 17 years ago at this
Yes.
point.
Yes.
And subscription models and the OEMs playing in car rental. And everyone is trying to be a service provider, right? Right. And we found out that the car rental companies themselves do it better than anyone. They're still around. So it's a constantly churning market. Um, but for car rental companies, they can survive the downturns, I think.
Yes.
Uh, let's put it this way. It's a lot easier to sell fleet than it is to cut off hotel rooms, when the demand goes down,
Absolutely.
or even, park airplanes or sell airplanes. So the car rental industry has remarkable resiliency.
Completely agree with you, with this part. And I think we sort of find new ways also to innovate and sell our car rental services online, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
many companies, rest of the world, many companies also want to be a part of ARN. They want to publish their stories on auto rental news. And as an editor, right, how do you filter, between the news and the real news? How do you see that? Because I'm sure you get so many requests. So as a publisher, what do you do? Like, what's the process like?
Yeah, we, a lot of the stuff that comes across our desk is certainly from a company or a supplier, a vendor that has a product. And really, that's what we do in a trade media company is we do connect vendors, suppliers with buyers. And we want to do that in a way that allows the car rental company to make their operations more efficient, more sustainable, more customer friendly. And so we kind of present articles and webinars and news items that do that. So we proactively look at the news. We see
Yes.
what's going on with Avis and Hertz, and then we write about it. And then certainly if a product comes across our desk or a service comes across our desk, we'll have to analyze it and see, does it really reach the market? Does it serve car rental companies? And that's really a question of meeting the supplier, meeting the vendor, maybe like we're doing over like Zoom,
Yes.
and basically understanding their offering. And it's our job really to kind of translate that in, could be an article, to really show value and to show to our readers, hey, this is some or something that you want to use to make your company better. Now, obviously, there's plenty of other news out there that helps inform our readers as to what's going on in the market, and that could be as simple as hey, our basketball team for XYZ car rental won the championship for the state of Texas, okay, let's celebrate that, it's a community.
Yeah.
And so we are all about fostering this community, a global community.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And we are a very interesting community of, of so many organizations, from around the world. You have mentioned very interestingly that, there's Avis, there's, big organizations, Hertz, for example, right? And then there are so many other, organizations also with their affiliate programs or franchise programs around the world. So how do you differentiate between the two? Because there are companies who are 100 years old, 80 years old. They have a big, rich history, and then there are new organizations, who are, coming up. So as a person from the media, how do you analyze between the two? Is there a difference between the two, or they are considered as just another car rental, let's say, supplier under one basket?
Well, certainly the market, let's take the US market, is frankly 96% owned by the major companies,
Yes.
Avis Budget Group,
Yes.
Hertz, which includes Dollar Thrifty, obviously, and Enterprise Holdings, which includes National and Alamo. So you know, the suppliers reach them and very directly. Our market is mostly the independents who do have affiliations with larger brands and the franchisees for some of those larger brands that are you know there's a constant churn on there. Um, it's just a question of really engaging with these smaller companies and understanding what their business niche is. And really, what I try to counsel for smaller rental companies that are trying to make their way in the world and start, it's hard to start, right?
Yes, that's right.
Um, is find a niche, do something well. This isn't car rental or selling, I don't know, whatever, it's you're not going to compete on price with Avis and Enterprise, but
Yes.
you can compete on service. And if you here in Los Angeles, we have a smaller car rental company called Midway, who has great connections with the movie studios. They know how to service the movie studios.
Right.
The
Oh,
movie studios are going to pay a little bit more for those vehicles,
yes, yes, yes.
um, because they have those connections.
Yes.
And you can even win in a local market if you're doing, let's say, insurance replacements, like collision repair or something. You can win against enterprise by knowing your customers, having really good customer service. So that's really the key to success for these smaller companies, whether you're in Costa Rica or whether you're in, the US.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you on that, yeah, on the customer service part. And I think as a small player, what you can bring on the table that is different than, let's say, others, whether it's a small, niche, like you mentioned, and also your strength, play with your strength and serve the customers, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
when we were in the COVID-19 times, I remember there was a lot of talk about keyless cars and keyless entry to the car, and there will be no need for the locations in future, for example. And I can see that now that we have touched some kind of normalcy, so that talk has been on the back burner for a while. Many companies are now, offering services on the counter, again, physical face-to-face interaction. Do you think that trend has sort of gone away now? Will it come back? What happened to the keyless car rentals?
Well, the thing that is a little somewhat disconcerting to me is if I pull up Twitter, now called X, and I see, if you sort of type in car rental queue or car rental line,
Right.
you'll get a string of, mostly, a lot of times this happened more like, say, last year,
Yeah.
right? With when there was no cars, and the year before when there was hardly any cars.
Yes.
It's upset customers in a long line. In 2024, should anyone wait in line with the digital tools that we have now, and the way to manage customers and to manage capacity and supply?
Yes.
We're still kind of in that situation, which is, we need to be further along there. So to answer your question, Ammar, I think that uh, yes, we are making the process more seamless,
Yes.
but it's still a counter transaction. Mostly, it's still a handing a key
Yeah.
over a counter. Um, we could we can do better.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen at the Carnival show this year, we certainly talked about these new systems that are like, hey, app-based, straight to the car, don't have to deal with waiting in lines, that type of thing. It hasn't happened fast enough, frankly, post-COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree with you. It hasn't happened fast enough because when I was watching the trend, during COVID times, I thought this will be the, future. Let's say more than 60% of the delivery of the car will be done through this, app, for example, and keyless. And that didn't really happen. It's actually crawled back to the pre-COVID, delivery kind of, service time. So yeah, I was a bit shocked on that. But again, people change, of course, trend changes, of course, and it doesn't take long, for a trend to change. So,
Yeah.
Chris, there's a lot of talk about the American dream and the American way of car rental versus car rental done outside of America, right? My question is, what makes America so special, or a different sort of market that it allows you to open up a company, open up a brand, and become this brand that takes over the world? Like we talk about the Hertz, these big brands, they have done really well. I mean, you have to appreciate that they have gone international,
Yeah.
grown. So what's about America that sort of really makes it happen for them?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that the US is markedly different, to be honest. I mean, certainly, the US and Germany started the automobile, right? So maybe it goes, the automobile basically became as quickly as any country, it came to pass in the US. So it makes sense that auto rental would start here with Hertz. But we have to remember the Europe car started back not soon after Hertz, around 20 years after, and Sixt in
Yes,
Germany is almost basically as old as Hertz.
absolutely.
I also have seen in different parts of the world the entrepreneurial spirit, and those people come to the car rental show.
Yes,
So I see their ability in, let's say, Costa Rica to open some sort of innovative brokerage that, uses different people's supply. Um, the US just happens to be a very big country
yes,
with a lot to see. It's a very mature market. There's wide open spaces where it really, I'm going to be in Europe next month. And does it make sense in Barcelona to rent a car? Not really. I live in Los Angeles. I have people coming from Italy to come visit. They need a car to
yes.
really to visit California. You kind of need a car, so that's where it still makes sense in Florida. Go to Disney World and stuff. It makes sense to have a car. Europe's a little more compact. Japan might be a little more compact, and there's more public infrastructure. So that's some of the differences.
Right. So US has this big advantage also being a very big country with so many states out there, right? So one can travel from one place to another. It's like almost going to a new country, like East Coast, West
Oh
Coast.
yeah,
That makes a difference.
sure.
Mm,
Yeah. Yep.
absolutely. So Chris, very, very interesting. So coming back to the entrepreneurial spirit, right? And I'm sure you meet, the CEOs of so many companies who have done really well in our industry in car rental, right? What is one advice that you want to give, to someone who's starting now as an entrepreneur in our industry? What's the mantra to success apart from the customer service, for example? What else one can?
Sure. Yeah, well, here's going to be there's a few things off the top of my head, and one is one of the hardest things that you'll do is customer acquisition, and that's any startup in any business is customer acquisition.
Yes,
How are you going to get customers to understand who you are? And that's essentially search engine optimization is one, and that is local market. Really, you have to exploit your local market, and you have to know how to, basically put on your shoes and do it the old-fashioned way.
right,
You're gonna have to find those pockets of customers, and a lot of it could be sort of a business to business thing. You grab a box of donuts and go to the local office supply store. They're gonna need a car every once in a while. Hey, here's my business card.
beautiful.
Um, but in conjunction with that, understanding search engine optimization tools to allow your company, XYZ Car Rental, to kind of come up to the top when you're searching in Austin, Texas for inexpensive car rentals, that's going to be key. The other thing is really understanding fleet.
Mm,
And for people just getting into the industry,
yeah,
they underestimate how difficult fleet is.
yes,
Well, it's a learning process, right? You have to buy the cars right, you have to depreciate them right, and understand that you can take profits by renting your cars at a certain rate. Um, in conjunction with that, you certainly obviously have to know how to price your cars. It might be easy to price in the market where you're going to rent a car for $10 and your competitor's renting for 25, and oh sure, you'll get a bunch of business. All your cars will be rented, 100% utilization. That's just not going to be a path to profitability. It's really an algorithm that there are third-party tools out there to help you. So customer acquisition, understanding fleet, how to buy cars, how to sell them, and then also how to price them. Those are the three major things. And of course, what I had said first, find a niche, exploit that niche, and serve those customers well.
yeah, absolutely. Chris, thank you very much, for your pearls of wisdom. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ammar. It was great to talk to you as well.